Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I am delighted that my honourable friend, the member for West Worcestershire, and I have secured this debate. We find ourselves in this country, as all honourable colleagues will know, in a dire financial situation. Yet this situation extends deep into the private lives of many of our citizens. We find ourselves with the lowest personal savings ratio in the G20, with the highest level of personal debt, and half of all personal debt in the EU being borne by the inhabitants of these islands. We have a well-known problem of pensions underfunding, not just a deficit on pension liabilities, but the fact that people are not putting enough aside for their retirements. Mortgages have been taken out at the height of the boom, in some cases at levels higher than 100% of the value of the property to which they relate. Mortgage lenders worry about the next time bomb that may hit our economy. That is a trend to interest-only mortgages, mortgages where the borrower hopes that inflation and an opportunity to downscale will pay off their mortgage. And we have a housing market where many commentators still consider there is more to come in terms of readjustment. It is against this background that we are debating today the regulation of an important group of professionals, independent financial advisors. And I'm particularly keen to talk about this group because if we are even to begin to deal with the problems I've outlined, we need a resource of professionals who will be able to spread the word and give sound financial advice to the wider population. The marketplace for retail investment advice in the UK is very diverse, involving banks, building societies, stockbrokers, and some 33,000 independent financial advisors, as well as some other players. It is fair to say that there have been problems in the past, and the FSA, in their evidence submitted to the Treasury Select Committee last week, suggested that there was, and still is, a significant amount of mis-selling every year. A figure of some 250 million per year was volunteered, but that is based largely on assumption and extrapolation of previous mis-selling scandals. By all means.
Member, forgiving me. I've had a number of constituents come to me very, very concerned about the fact of what you're proposing in this sense, where it's a case that they're going to have to revalue themselves, go through another examination. Can you maybe shed some light on why that should be?
I trust the Honourable Member is referring to the IFAs who will have to do this. I'll come to that a little later in my speech, if I may, but I will be addressing specifically that. Mr. Speaker, this is an important point because it highlights the significant amount of money being drawn out of the net savings pool of the country. And I think it's only right that the FSA and the regulators should address this problem. So they looked into this and surmised that in this marketplace, competition is hindered by opaqueness and incentive conflicts, resulting in the interest of firms versus customers not being fully aligned. The FSA set up the Retail Distribution Review, RDR, in 2006 to address these problems, and the new rules are due to come into force in January 2013. Specifically, according to the FSA, RDR aims to bring about three principal changes. Firstly, to improve the clarity with which firms describe their services to consumers. Secondly, to address the potential that advisors' remuneration may distort consumer outcomes. And finally, to improve advisors' professional standards. Now, by all means.
Final point. I've also had a number of people writing to me, and would you agree with me that one of their overriding concerns, and I've had letters from people with 29 or 30 years experience, is that that experience doesn't seem to count for anything?
This is a very recurring theme, and again, I will come to this specifically in my words, but you're absolutely right to raise it. And this is an item that's been raised by huge numbers of IFAs who've got in touch with myself and my honourable friend for West Worcestershire, and indeed many, many other members. But all of these three aims that the FSA have talked about are, I believe, in their overall principle laudable. It's certainly not our intention here tonight to derail the Retail Distribution Review. And I'm certainly improved standards for consumers, and I suspect there is not a single professional in the industry that would not agree with the overall principles. And indeed, which the Consumer Champion is strongly supportive of the measures contained in RDR. And it says that they, quote, firmly believe that the IFA industry is best placed to offer this advice. However, and I'm coming to the point you raised, the devil is, as ever, always in the detail. In addressing these problems, the FSA has, through RDR, introduced issues that disproportionately affect the IFA community. According to the IFA trade organisation IEFA, when giving evidence to the Treasury Select Committee, they suggested that whilst some 30% of IFAs were strongly in support of RDR and 40% rather ambivalent to it, 30%, and I quote, would not put up with RDR. Those 30% against RDR are suggesting that it would be better to leave the industry altogether, and thus the community of IFAs would be significantly shrunk. I'll give way.
Thank you for allowing an intervention. Do you agree that this is particularly damaging to rural areas, where all of the institutions, all of the independent advisors are either one-man businesses or very, very small businesses? And of the 30% who don't like this, do you agree that a huge proportion of those are likely to come from rural areas, where the damage is particularly damaging?
The gentleman makes a very important point. It's absolutely right that it's those small businesses in the rural areas that are likely to be most affected by this, because they have so few resources in their offices. And as a direct result of that, it's those poorer communities in the rural areas that will be denied the access to independent financial advice, and this is not a good thing to be doing. Turn to my speech. Lord Turner, the chairman of the FSA, suggested that this may well reduce the number of FSAs, IFAs, may well reduce the overall cost of investor advice. But how can it possibly be the case that reducing competition results in improved service to consumers? The key issue facing the worried community of IFAs can be reduced to just a handful of salient points. And the first of these points refers to qualifications, which is probably the biggest mailbag we're getting on this. It has been said, perhaps a little harshly, that IFAs currently hold a qualification no better than that of a McDonald's Burger Bar employee. A qualification and credit framework level 3 pass, which is equivalent to an A-level. RDR is requiring all financial advisors to attain the QCF level 4 pass, and in the broadest sense that is not unreasonable. However, what this does not take into account is the fact that there are a great many IFAs who have a wealth of experience, but with an average age of 47, little enthusiasm to start taking exams. It is estimated that these exams will require 100 hours of study for each of 4 separate modules. That's 400 hours of study. This, bear in mind, for a full-time professional who needs to earn a living and who may, as my honourable friend over there mentioned, be working by himself in a rural community with little support. The IFA community are broadly in support of raising excellence in their profession, and many are opting to take qualification exams. Yes, probably.
Could my honourable friend come up with any explanation that he sees why grandfathering rights couldn't be applied to those with long experience? There's a particularly given that such experience is very much needed at the moment in the marketplace by savers who are desperate to make good financial decisions.
I can see no reason at all for not introducing grandfathering rights. And indeed, when the FSA was set up, they introduced grandfathering rights when IFAs came over from the Personal Finance Authority.
Will my honourable friend give way?
Yes, please.
I'm extremely grateful to my honourable friend, and I'd like to congratulate him on this very important debate this evening. John Maris, a constituent of mine, and IFA, came to see me on Friday. He has already passed the exams that will be required. He's done the 400 hours of study. He says, even from that position, that he believes it ridiculous that those who've been in the industry many years should be forced to go through that. And although he has been able to do so, he thinks the removal from the market of people who are perfectly capable of doing the job but may not be able to get through those exams, although they've shown through many years they can look after customers, is completely wrong.
I think your constituent agrees with us all. The IFA community are broadly in support of raising excellence, as I mentioned before, in their profession, and many are opting to take the qualification exams on their own initiative without the dead hand of the FSA pressing them to do so. Indeed, the website unbiased.co.uk lists IFAs by their qualifications, so this move towards improved excellence is already moving forward under its own steam. But there are a significant number, possibly as many as a third, who feel that their 20, 30 or 40-year experience not only trumps any exams, but also covers a significant depth of knowledge in their chosen areas, knowledge that will surpass any exam requirement. But in taking exams, they're also going to be tested on areas they choose not to specialise in. But the FSA, as I've said before, and many honourable members have suggested, seems blind to their expertise. The FSA does not recognise this experience, and it is determined to put out of business any IFA who is reluctant to take their exams or to subject themselves to the FSA's ill-thought-through in-house assessment.
Will my honourable friend agree with me that if these experienced independent financial advisors are driven from the market, those who will lose out most will be those with the smallest amount of assets, who won't get the advice they currently get?
Absolutely. absolutely. And in addition to that, the other group of people who will lose out very much by the removal of these grey-haired sage IFAs will be the younger ones. Who will mentor the young, aspiring and highly qualified but short and experienced new trainee? The FSA has no answer to that. Turning to fees and commissions, the FSA is further proposing from January 2013 that consumers will no longer be able to choose how their advisor is remunerated.
Well, my honourable friend aware of that point?
Yes, pardon me.
Thank you very much for giving way. Is my honourable friend aware if any survey has been conducted on whether consumers have any appetite at all for paying fees for their financial advice?
Well, you won't be at all surprised to hear that there are... won't be at all surprised to hear that there are a number of surveys. I think Which did a survey which said that 85% of people would prefer to pay fees. And yet, I have it here, Harris Interactive did a survey where only 6% of the public said that they would be happy to pay fees as opposed to commissions. And this is a big problem, I think. In the future, customers will need to agree a fee with their advisor. This means that no longer will a client pay for advice via a commission charge on a transaction.
My honourable friend, give way.
Yes,